Hello, welcome to Aviation 101 with Laura. It's summer break, that's why I'm not in my normal location, so this is my home recording studio. Hope you guys like it. Sorry I was out for a while. I was on an awesome trip where my family and I got to go to England and Ireland and Northern Ireland, and yeah, it was a fantastic time. I'm back and I am starting a series about the dispatcher practical test standards. So it kind of occurred to me, people don't maybe really know what the practical test standards are as dispatchers unless you are familiar with this from flight training. So we are going to actually, over the next few weeks and months, I am going to be going over practice oral questions. This has been a hot thing people have been asking for a while, but I'm going to try to do like a recurring series here where we go through different parts of the practical test standards and I give you practice oral questions and answers. So how I'm going to do it is I'm going to release each video two ways. One will be just me asking questions and you can pause it and answer yourself and go on. Second one will be the longer form where I will ask the question and then I will answer the question in a way that I think would work well for a aircraft dispatcher practical exam. And you can watch either one, watch both, whatever works for you. It might help you with like podcasts if you listen to it in the car or when you're running or whatever. But anyway, so how do you find the practical test standards? For one, the FAA a while back said we are going to have them be airman certification standards, but then they never did that for dispatchers. They are still found if you go to airman testing on FAA.gov. To practical test standards, you will find them. You won't find them under airman certification standards. So if we go down my list, and I always recommend check the FAA website because you do always want the most current version. That's what your dispatch examiner is going to use when they do the test. So here is the test standards for aircraft dispatch. Always again, check the date. I'm gonna zoom out a wee bit. There we go. And then you've got a little forward, what is it for? It explains that it is superseding a different one. They had really not revised it for a very long time. It was like 10 years later that they revised it. The table of contents, the main areas that we are gonna be focusing on, and here I will zoom in, these areas of operation. And so these different areas of operation each have a bunch of tasks underneath each one. I can't ask you enough oral questions to comprehensively get everything that you might get asked on a test, but I'm hoping this is still going to be helpful. And I would love feedback in the comments. So let me know if you want me to continue this kind of series. What do you prefer? So let's keep going past all the front information. We have an introduction. What is the PTS for? Then we have basically an area of operation is something where you're going to do a test. But the examiner does say it can do the practical test in any order that they want to do, so they can jump around these question areas. It's up to them, okay? So if they're jumping around, it doesn't mean anything's going right, doesn't mean anything's going wrong, it just means they're doing what they can do. Tasks are areas that you have to have knowledge or doing some kind of procedure. References are really helpful in here because the FAA gives you a bunch of references where you can look up where they're getting whatever it is they're asking about. Objectives is basically making sure that you can actually demonstrate that you're competent in the task. All right, and then we have essentially that this is the objective is going to be spelled out for each task. The practical test standards has a whole lot of reference, yay for all the reference material, and a whole lot of acronyms and abbreviations that you will find throughout the practical test standards. Okay, then it basically says the written exam, the dispatch examiner is going to give you a written plan of action. That's going to be how they're going to do this. If they evaluate part of one task in another task, they don't have to do it again. They even give you an example here, which is handy to know. And then there are special emphasis areas. The FAA loves these. These are super important. You expect to be asked about each of these things. So I would begin your study with looking through, do I know something about each of these things? What are some of these even talking about? Well, we're going to get to that in the series as I go through this over the next few weeks and months. Okay, and then you also need to make sure that you are competent enough in the English language that the examiner is going to understand that you can read, write, speak, understand English. That is a requirement for this exam. If that's something you struggle with, there are some aviation learning services that can help you improve your English. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to keep going on. What do you have to supply for the practical test as the applicant? Well, there's a whole list. So the examiner is going to tell you what to supply. What the examiner is going to give you, weather and NOTAMs, unless they ask you to use current weather information. They could. They typically are going to have in that written plan of action some sort of test scenario, like I want you to fly from this airport to this airport, this how many people, this how much cargo, and here's some weather, here's some NOTAMs, and then they're going to go from there and have you plan. So you have to provide all these documents. If you went to a dispatch school, and it keeps going on the next page. If you went to a dispatch school, this is going to be very helpful for you because they should be able to help you, providing you with most of these things, although some of it, like your own flight computer, that's going to be on you. Typically, you will need to provide your completed application for the airman certificate or apply in IACRA. I have another video if you want to check that out. You need to bring your airman knowledge test report. That's the ADX knowledge test. If you are showing them previous experiences, how you're getting the certificate without the graduation certificate, then you have to provide pilot certificate information. Also, please make sure you are bringing a photo ID, signature ID. And from what I understand, I believe if you are not a US citizen, you have to have 2 forms of photo ID, although I don't think it says that in the practical test standards. Okay, they are going to charge you a fee, so you will have to be ready. If you are retesting, you have to bring your notice of disapproval from before. Okay. All right, so then we're going to keep going down here. It says the examiner should use no less than 4 hours to do the test. I have seen them as long as 6.5 hours, but that person still passed, so yay. If it's going way longer than that, it's possible that the examiner may ask you to come back another day. It might cause you to fail the exam if you are taking like way too long to do some of these things. Okay, now let us also talk, before I really get into this, I'm spending some time going over the practical test standards to try to explain what this is talking about. These are what they are looking for you to do. Do the tasks as specified. Okay. Follow your normal, abnormal, and emergency procedures. Okay, if you went through some school, there's probably some pretend company that your school set up. They give you like a manual. That's what I do at my school. You're going to be doing that. So it's important you know what is in your materials that you're providing for the test. They are looking for you to demonstrate good judgment. Okay, not being crazy and doing things that are not legal or unsafe. Aeronautical decision making. Okay, if I go back up to this area of special emphasis, ADM, aeronautical decision making. Big hot button for the FAA because it's important. Aeronautical decision making is important. So make sure you are doing that. And then we have apply aeronautical knowledge. Well, clearly they're going to evaluate you on that. It also says right here, a handy little tip. Satisfactory performance means, we'll zoom in, the applicant is able to demonstrate skill and correctly respond to examiner's questions at least 70% of the time. Each examiner must have a method for making determinations. So that means it does not have to be 100% right. Like you get one question wrong, you fail. It's not how this test actually operates. So don't use that as a reason to not study or anything. That won't go well. But also, if you're really anxious test taker, right here it says 70% of the time. So maybe that makes you feel a little better. Unsatisfactory performance. So if you don't meet the objectives that the FAA has set out, then you are going to fail that area and hence the whole practical test. The examiner might let you keep going and ask more questions. You might be able to get more areas done, but he or she has to tell you, and then you have to approve if you're going to continue with the test. Here are some typical things that they are going to look for. If you mess up an MEL or a CDL, and we're going to get to some questions on that in the weeks to come in these video series. MEL, CDL, I actually have seen people fail on this. So you have to be able to carefully read and understand and apply whatever that MEL or CDL has on it. Expect to get one, at least one, on your flight plan. Just expect it, and expect it to be a complicated and weird one. Okay. Then we have actions that would be violating 14 CFR. If you were actually dispatching a flight, that would be bad. So you don't want to do anything that, breaks regs, like not listing a alternate on the dispatch release when you needed an alternate because of weather. That would be in violation of 14 CFR. Just a quick example. Okay. Exceeding an AFM limitation. So let's say your aircraft has a maximum tailwind component of 10 knots, which the 737-300 that we use has that. You pick a runway that has a 25 knot tailwind. That's you're exceeding an AFM limitation. So we want to avoid things like that. Failing to comply with op specs. So my class we provide for the students their sample operations specifications. I helped write that from a base document. And you can't be in violation with your own op specs. So make sure you know what is in your op specs. Failure to properly interpret weather. Make sure you can read it. And that means every single thing in the METAR, every single thing in the TAF. We'll get to some questions here in the videos to come. And failure to properly interpret NOTAMs. So again, expect NOTAMs and weather to be coming up. Somebody I saw fail a test, it was weather. It was, unfortunately, missed some things on weather, missed some things on NOTAMs, and it went bad from there. The good thing is, if you have satisfactorily completed part of the test, you may not have to redo those areas, but the new examiner, or if you go back to the same one, they might ask you similar questions again. Okay. If you have to stop the test because, I don't know, say the power goes out in the building and you, for some reason, cannot continue the exam, then you would get a letter of discontinuance. Pretty uncommon for dispatch or exam because we don't have anything with real weather typically to worry about with this. Okay, then we got a little blurb on dispatch resource management, why we should do that. Okay, highly recommend, read this advisory circular that they reference or bring it to your test. Be familiar with what's in it. And then risk management and aeronautical decision making, which I kind of already brought up, aeronautical decision making, but that is where we have scenarios. Typically, your examiner is going to give you some scenarios. Along the way, you want to be conservative in your answers, think it through, don't back yourself into a corner. Okay, now that was a lot. It was like 13 minutes, so I'm going to stop there, but the next video we're going to be doing is going to be me asking practice oral questions on Area of Operation 1, Task A, regulatory requirements. So stick around for that, look for that. It's summer, so I don't release quite as often typically in the summer, but I still want to support you guys. I'm still really rooting for you with dispatch studying. So have a fantastic day from Aviation 101 with Laura.